For years now, possibly for longer than 10 years now, one of our most renomated geneticists, or rather geneticists and researchers, claim that standard history is a standard dogma, is improbable, and needs to be rewritten from scratch. So, but historians didn't pick this up. Also, alternative historians didn't pick this up. They mentioned about the timeline, but it's not right that it goes further back. And when a certain alternative historian talked about history going back to the end of the last ice age, he received a lot of critics, a lot of criticizing. So it's very divided. Even the alternative historians are very divided in between them. It's also not very clear who is supporting consensus and who is supporting alternative history. So anyhow, that's of no importance anymore, because we tell that the chessboard is totally changed. We had a modern human fossil in what at least I call the southern tip of Australia. And the southern tip of Australia is more or less the southern tip of Eurasia, if you consider this Eurasia. And it is more or less, especially during the ice ages, this was a landmass connected to Eurasia, and Australia was part of a much bigger landmass. So there was a very narrow way through, narrow, tens of kilometers still, with a very strong current, even today, probably more during the ice age, just because it was narrow. So it's not very difficult to imagine that this is Eurasia, that it's a peninsula that extends Eurasia. This is only Asia. Europe is to the west of it. So here's Europe. So if you go right, you come in Asia. Or rather, if you go east, you come in Asia. So in the top of it, we have evidence of modern humans 50 to 60,000 or more years ago. And that's very weird, because why should out of Africa walk until this extension, extreme extension of Eurasia, and cross a very dangerous canal, a current, open sea, that probably would mean they're dead. So why would they insist in going to this extreme point? That this, if they were departing from Africa, then this early arrival is very weird, especially so that's in between Africa and the extreme southeast of Eurasia, and even, let's say, the island of Sahul, which today Australia is a leftover of. So that is very improbable, in fact, impossible. So that's weird on itself, but it's much weirder than this. This early modern human, this too early modern human, in a weird location, did carry modern human mtDNA. That means that too early modern human, especially in this place, when viewed from consensus, that includes out of Africa, it has modern human DNA. It doesn't have the supposed African mtDNA. It doesn't have the supposed mitochondrial DNA. So even if it came from Africa, it's very weird in the second instance. It's too early, and it's already modern. And Africa is not, and never was, that is speaking of sub-Saharan Africa, which consensus tells us that that is where we come from, and that we come from mitochondrial-Eve, which is nothing else than mitochondrial DNA L, which you cannot find amongst modern humans. So this too early Australian modern human has also much too early modern human mtDNA. So in fact, the mitochondrial-Eve is in Australia, not in Africa at all. So that is Australia, the southeast extreme of the extended Eurasia here. And when you look at the currents, you see that right there, the East Australia current arrives, and the East Australia current is nothing else, or is something very important, from the Pacific gyre, from the Southern Pacific gyre. This one. As you see, it is a warm current streaming back to the east, back to the Americas, and it's reinforced by a more global current. So it's also very rough seas over there. So if you get here, especially if you get a little bit more south, you will float or navigate in a very cold current, Antarctic circumpolar current. But that's not the thing. It's part of this current. So if it's thrown back, you're in a cold current, or maybe you can pick up the warm current, but that's much less probable. Anyhow, it's a gyre. It's a South Pacific gyre. There's also a North Pacific gyre. Doesn't matter really now. So this is very weird. This is almost like proving we are not from out of Africa. Standard dogma that we descend from sub-Saharan Africans is pretty much proven totally wrong. Not a little bit, totally wrong. In fact, there's quite some evidence that mitochondrial-Eve, which is mitochondrial DNA L, didn't get out of Africa, isn't even from Africa, because the most dominant one is the L3, and the L3 is not from Africa. That can be proven. That does not say that the other L1, L0, L2 are from Africa, but the most dominant one, which is mitochondrial DNA L3, is provingly not African. But that's for separate videos. So it's totally wrong here on the Australian side, and it's totally wrong on the African side of the out of Africa. So now we get a modern human of 1 million years. I think it came out yesterday, the 26th of September 2025. So a modern human of 1 million years ago. So, well, right now, the pillar of out of Africa was mitochondrial DNA L. It only exists 200,000 years. So now it's all done. Out of Africa collapsed because we find a modern human of 1 million years ago. Besides, it already had collapsed because mitochondrial DNA L, the so-called mitochondrial-Eve, or the so-called African Eve, sometimes, not very often, was carried by Neanderthals. Neanderthals is something between 1 million years ago and 40,000 years ago, or 41,000 years ago. Anyhow, they died out when out of Africa took place, supposedly between 50 and 80,000 years ago. For a very long time it was 50,000 years ago. For geneticists it still is 47,000 years ago. So, and it's carried by Neanderthals. There's three periods of Neanderthals, and all three periods carry the mitochondrial-Eve DNA before it is recognized to exist in humans. So, are the Neanderthals mitochondrial-Eve? No, but that's still another thing. But so on three levels, out of Africa is proven wrong. So here, it's proven wrong in time. It's too early, and it's proven wrong that the modern humans here, of 50 to 60,000 or more years ago, already carry modern human mitochondrial DNA. That is, the ones that are current in Europe and the rest of the world, except in sub-Saharan Africa, where a more primitive, I hope we can call it more primitive, that's more or less what consensus tells us, and it was carried by Neanderthals, mitochondrial DNA reigns, while in the rest of the world it is not. In the rest of the world, all except sub-Saharan Africa, that's only a part of Africa. So, the supposed out of African that came too early in the southern tip of Eurasia, in the southeastern extreme of Eurasia, in fact in Australia, or rather Sahu at the time, carried modern human mitochondrial DNA. That's very wrong. That the Neanderthal already carried, possibly more than 1 million years ago, the by consensus supposed mother DNA, well, that is as much or even more a proof against consensus, against standard dogma. And then a modern human of 1 million years ago, well, messes up again with out of Africa, with consensus, with standard dogma, because the mother DNA that only exists 200,000 years, and there were modern humans at the wrong place, at least for consensus at the wrong place, for out of America, and this currents on the exact place, again, here in Mungo Lake, on the exact place for out of the Americas, here on the exact place for out of the Americas. So, and that should come together with that all ancestral markers, which is more than all genetical ancestral markers, tell us that we come out of the Americas. And some of them tell us we come out of the Amazon forest. And that is, of course, and Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia play a role in it. And that's exactly who could have delivered in Australia. And in fact, that's another factor. We know that Australia and India and several other places in Oceania and in Indonesia carry, let's say, a marker, an ancestral marker, that is also found in exactly South America. In fact, in the Amazon forest, where it touches Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, which we mentioned. So, and again, this marker that can be found in Australia and South America, but also in Polynesia and so on until India, is not found at all the way from, if this was the case, from Eurasia to North, Central, and South America. So it's a kind of proof that also the Bering-Land-Bridge standstill is not part of the human history, at least not an important part. But it is Bering-Land-Bridge crossing and standstill are an essential part of out of Africa. So that's also proven wrong, and it's never proven right. No fossil ever was found. There is no genetical, let's say, let's call it evolution, from what was present here and what will supposedly arrived, wrongly supposed, arrived in the Americas.